Perhaps hard to believe, but it's been 10 years since my somewhat controversial 420 video. Time flies when you're flying high. I did a Buckley versus Buckley episode on my Patreon a couple of years ago. Support the habit at patreon.com/doseofbuckley. And this video is not going to focus too much on it, but seeing as this is dose number 420, I feel it would be a missed opportunity if this video didn't talk about everyone's favorite plant. A few people, including the amazing atheist, didn't like the 420 video for a couple reasons. One, I called people who celebrate drug users losers. I think I might have called them fucking losers. Saying that I also felt the same about anyone who would celebrate any vice. And two, I talked about marijuana addiction. Did you know that when you call an addict, they get a little defensive? Lucky for me, the thing they're addicted to tends to make them pretty mellow. You can piss off potheads pretty safely. Meth heads, on the other hand, I don't recommend that. They get a little stabby. But one thing that I feel was ignored in that video was how I was all for the legalization of marijuana. I think weed definitely should be legal. I'd love for it to be sold by the government or corporations and taxed. It would create new jobs, bring in more tax dollars for things like healthcare, education, police, whatever the fuck they want to use it on, and save us even more tax dollars that we currently piss away on court costs and imprisonment costs for people who were caught with a bag of weed. Well, in 2018, 5 years after I made that video, Canada legalized marijuana, becoming only the second country to do so. Did you know that it's actually not legal in the Netherlands? It's decriminalized and they don't really care. The cops aren't stomping up to you in wooden shoes to be like, empty your pockets. But technically, it's not legal. No, the very first country to legalize marijuana was actually Uruguay, where prostitution is also legal. So if you have a buddy who's really obsessed with going to Uruguay, it ain't to see the big hand sticking out of the sand, but it is to stick something somewhere. So anyway, it's been over 4 full years since Canada legalized marijuana, and we now have some real concrete data as to what the results of that are on a society. Have kids all shot each other like that old PSA suggested?
Hey man, check this out.
Cool. Is it loaded?
Nah.
And the answer is yes, it's a real children of men situation here now. Kids just don't exist anymore. No, our kids are relatively fine. They're still Canadian though, so now you don't know if they're high or just their usual level of slow. But if you'll permit me to be a little less funny and a little more interesting... Buckley, you thought you were funny? You sure you're not high? Yeah. I want to share some stats with you, some of which perhaps confirm the fears of people like former Nebraska Governor Pete Ricketts, who believe things like, well, if marijuana's legal, everyone will be getting high all the time, including kids who will die. Luckily, Canada are a bunch of nosy bitches who spend a lot of time collecting stats. Statistics Canada released this data from 2002 and 2012 conducted surveys on marijuana usage. In 2002, roughly 12% of Canadians said they had smoked in the past year, and there was roughly no change 10 years later. 18 to 24-year-olds were the most likely users, with 33 to 36% of effectively college-aged young adults claiming they smoked, followed by 20 to 28% of 15 to 17-year-olds. Kind of interesting to note that numbers actually decreased between 2002 and 2012 in both those age groups. Now, this survey was taken at a time when weed was illegal, and it said that some smokers can be a little paranoid. So it's possible that these stats, which are of course self-reported, are a little wrong. Maybe some people weren't overly truthful. I'm not telling these narcs I smoke. They'll come arrest me, and the only thing I'll be smoking is some murderer's pole in jail. I ain't fucking saying shit, man. However, in both those years, it should be noted that 41% of the population said they had tried it at least once in their lifetime, just not in the past 12 months. Now that it's legal, what do you think those numbers look like? Play a little game with yourself here. Do you think that they, A, stayed roughly the same, B, went up a little, C, went up a lot, or D, actually went down? Again, 12% of Canadians said they used it at least once in 2012. 10 years later, in 2022, 27% of Canadians said that they used it in the past year, with 50% of Canadians aged 20 to 24 years old admitting to partaking in a little legal lettuce, and 37% of 16 to 19-year-olds passing the Dutchie on the left-hand side. Yeah, I'm old, shut up. So, that is pretty significant. We're talking about more than double the overall number. And that 50% number, that's the exact type of number fearmongers would love to see. That's something you use in a campaign ad. In Canada, our neighbors to the north, where marijuana is legal, half of Canadians aged 20 to 24 admit to using marijuana. These are the people you're hiring to work in your factories, to teach your kids, who you're trusting to work at your stores. Is this what you want happening in America? A nation where half the workforce is stoned? Don't let this happen to our country. Vote no on turning America into a nation of zombies. Now, Canadians who have used it in the past 12 months were asked how often they use it. That seems like an important distinction, right? Like 50% of 20 to 24-year-olds smoked, had an edible, drank a THC-infused drink, whatever. But did they do it once in a year, or is it a regular occurrence? Well, 34% of people said they had used it less than 1 day per month. So, safe to say they just got high at a party or at like Christmas to deal with the relatives. But 36% of Canadians said that they use it every other day or more, with 18% saying they use it daily. So, what's that? 18% of 27%? Oh, fuck, I'm sober and I don't know if I can figure this math out. But the point is, a significant portion of Canadians are using legal cannabis every day. But let's compare that to the thing that's been legal forever. 76% of Canadians report drinking an alcoholic beverage in the last year. No one cares that 3/4 of the population gets pissed up semi-regularly, but if 27% of the population gets high, the horrors. But check this out. In 2019, a full year after weed was legalized, the number of 15 to 19-year-olds who drink, underage for alcohol consumption in Canada, dropped to under 50%, a number that was up over 70% in 2008. And here's another interesting fact. Drunk driving is down across the board. In 2009, there were 81,966 impaired driving incidents involving alcohol, while there were 1,407 impaired incidents involving drugs. Now, the drug ones are way up, from 1,407 in 2009 to 7,454 in 2021. But look at the drunk driving stat. It's way down, nearly 30,000 fewer incidents. Some of that might have been because bars were closed for COVID, but that didn't seem to stop people from getting high and going for a drive. And another interesting stat, vehicle deaths and injuries are down. So, instead of someone getting drunk and driving full speed into oncoming traffic, killing everyone, stoned people are probably driving like 5 miles an hour into a lamppost, or just getting pulled over for going too slow. Yes, correlation doesn't imply causation. Maybe these are unrelated. Some of these numbers had been coming down slowly anyway. But here's what we know. Since the legalization of marijuana, fewer kids are drinking, fewer people have died in car accidents, and we find that marijuana usage significantly decreases after the age of 24. Like people go, yeah, that was fun, but I've grown out of it. While that doesn't seem to happen for drinking. After the age of 25, nearly 80% of people are still consuming alcohol, compared to only 25% of people getting high. Oh yeah, and let's talk about those taxes. You know who the real addicts are? The government. They're dependent on people with dependencies. From March 2021 to March 2022, the Canadian government itself earned $15.2 billion on alcohol and recreational cannabis sales. On top of that, it's reported that 98,000 people are employed by the cannabis industry. They all pay income tax, those businesses pay taxes. That's all money they didn't have coming in 6 years ago. Colleges now have programs like Cannabis Applied Sciences, bringing in more money for them. And again, money isn't being wasted on courts and jails for people found with a bag of weed on them. Who knows how much we're saving there? Just think of the withdrawal symptoms Canada would go through losing all that money. So, Overall, my stance really hasn't changed in 10 years. I think the legalization of cannabis is a good thing, and I think that if you truly need to get high every day to deal with life, you should consider figuring out what exactly in your life is so brutal that you can't face it sober. Or at the very least, please, don't waste your money on dumb shit like his and hers best bud t-shirts. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go drink 3 Cokes because I'm just itchy if I don't get my sugar for the day. What? Can a guy unwind?